Okay, people. This is rare these days because I've been dealing with so much personal things in my life, but I'm glad to do an interview with a stranger, somebody that has connected with me on Facebook recently, maybe a few weeks ago, and just I get a quickening of the spirit, like talk to this lady. So this is Karen Wibble, MK Ultra Monarch survivor. And I know very little about her. I know we've inboxed and we've been very transparent and honest with each other, but this is as new to me as it is to you. So I'm going to hand the floor over to Karen. This might be a series. I was just talking with her before and saying it's not always easy to just go blah blah blah. This happened and blah blah blah. It's not like that, is it, Karen?
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much. You're a lovely woman, and I appreciate your strength and support. And to meet someone like you, a victim, we're all coming together, and there's power and victims coming together and having a voice. The community doesn't know anything about a lot of this stuff. It's over their head to get any kind of help. So my name is Karen Wible, and I'm 60 years old. I don't have family, don't have children. And so my story basically is about my adoption, being adopted. And since 1974, I began to write. I went, I went to the orphanage where I was from in New Orleans, went to the nuns, and so I personally went there. I didn't get anything. And so throughout my life, so many cruel things happened that I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And so when I was 19 years old, I became a Christian. And for 42 years, I put my life in these churches, ministry, yada, yada, yada. So in the last 3 years, I have found out everything about my family. And my mind was blown. And I'd been homeless 46 times. My handler got a hold of my ex-husband for 6 years. I did not know. She took her clothes off in front of him, and then he didn't know my family had money. And, it was a long distance. We'd go visit. So they strategized for 6 years how to take me completely out, penniless, nothing, nothing, nothing. And they just told me all the time, every day, if you leave this home and get a divorce, you'll be homeless the rest of your life. And
Wow,
and,
wow.
and so in my confidence and my well-being as a woman and having God, the Holy Spirit, I'm like, hell no, no one could do that. Well, baby Jesus, they did. And so I don't want to get into it, but there were six police officers at my home. I had movers, and for 6 hours, he wouldn't let me get anything. And so in 48 hours, I lost everything. I did have some furniture, and I had a ministry cutting hair for the homeless for 9 years. And God just really kind of blessed me. But 4 years ago, I landed, I'm a hairdresser, went to a salon, went in the back room and said, look, I need a place to live. Anybody know anything? And one young lady said, hey, my mom lives in these apartments. And boom, bada boom, I got in. And so I'm going on 3.5 years. And the moment I landed, I felt so safe. I couldn't even explain the safety that I had. The pandemic hit. I got in my bed. I put my hand over my heart, and I just got real with God. I cried out and I said, dear God in heaven, what the hell happened to my life? Nothing makes sense
Yeah.
financially, emotionally, people, churches. I've done it all. I have sought you the best of my know-how, and boom, bada boom. I had my adopted father's obituary on 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 the nightstand, and I was talking to a woman in Alabama, and she knew everything about NASA. My dad worked for NASA for 20 years, and his boss was Werner von Braun. And so I grew up in the NASA world. They kept it from me what he did. So I read his obituary, baby God, baby Jesus. And my dumbass birth mother wrote it out. And I kept it. I mean, how, these people are so evil, but at the end of the day, they're so stupid. And I've outsmarted the whole thing, figured everything out. So I read that obituary. And for the first time in 15 years, I Googled my dad. It was never available. And then the winds of heaven hit during the pandemic. I hit the button, and there's 350 pages of my dad, what he did for NASA. So
Wow.
in 1954, he worked for Huntsville, Alabama at the Rocket Center there. And I got all the documents. So my mom and my dad in 1954 sold their souls out to the NASA Ultramonarch program. And so throughout my life, there were bits and pieces, and then boom, bada boom. I figured it all out. And I cried for a whole year in my bed. I screamed and wailed of all mental abuse. And so I did a rabbit hole with NASA, and God just sent me people, sent me people. And then I started calling all the courthouses where I was born, where my mom is, and I got 79 documents about my family, and it blew me away. And there was so much money there. I had no idea any amount of money that they had. I wasn't allowed food. Everything they got me was broken. They got me Christmas gifts from Goodwill's. I couldn't go to the doctor. I mean, it's mind blowing. And so in 1954, I looked all this up, and I have the documents. In 1954, NASA had a special on life insurance policies. And I never knew, never saw the money. Living in that home, I never saw documents. I snooped and snooped and snooped subconsciously. There was no mail coming in, no track of anything, anybody. And so I went back to my parents' photo album from 1954, where they got married. And there is Ultramonarch program government people that I've known all my life in that room while they
Wow.
got married.
Wow. I'll just say briefly, you said something that triggered me there. No, it's all right, it's gone again. I'm also in a healing phase myself at the moment, but you said something that went bing in my head. The 50s, Werner von Braun, military. No, it'll come back to me. Keep talking, it'll come back to me.
Okay, so I was walking around my
So
apartment.
your father worked for NASA?
Yes,
Oh
ma'am.
yeah, and I just wanted you to clarify. You said your birth mother wrote the obituary of your adoptive father. So that's a little bit. Tell me a bit more about that, just to make it clear.
So I have it. I can show it to you, but there's an obituary. There's 3 different obituaries with my father, and I kept them all. They were laminated. They were in the paper. So I kept the original one, and so she briefly put 20 years of his education, where he came from, and his administration. He was director of administration over NASA. I grew up in Washington, D.C. And so her first paragraph gave the location of his employment.
This is your adopted. Are you talking about your biological father, or your adoptive father?
No, these are my adopted parents.
Okay.
So I never knew. And so I did a search in Alabama of the NASA center there. And he started in 1954, and the Ultramonarch program started in 1954 with NASA. So my dad's boss was Werner von Braun. They were best friends, and my mom and dad sold their soul to this program.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say to you. I was invited to Louisiana in about, I think it was about 2009. I was invited on a 10-day speaking tour, and I was given freedom of the city of whatever it was, Lake Charles, and I was scheduled to speak in prisons and conferences and schools and so on. And I did that. And yeah, that's the thing I was going to say to you, was that I went in partnership with, I was talking about child sexual abuse, and I wasn't fully awake to the full extent of MK Ultra in my life, from the military, from birth, from conception. But the lady that I was going around in partnership with, she had come home from school, and her dad had tried to murder her mom when she was 8. She got off the school bus, and her mom was like nearly dead, and then her dad killed himself. It was an attempted murder suicide, but he didn't succeed at killing her mom. And then they were raised that they were poor, and then they discovered they were worth 22 million. It was the weirdest thing in Louisiana. It was like because a lot of the programming with these projects, you would be raised with a poverty mindset and hunger and deprivation and all the rest of it. And then she discovered through her mom survived, which she wasn't supposed to. And she discovered through her grandfather that they had oil drilling rights or something. Like, they had no idea, but the land they owned was worth 22 million. So it's this, that's what I wanted to say to you, was it's like you can be raised and think I'm nobody, and then you discover there's like a $5 million insurance policy on your life or whatever.
There is one. I have a $5 million life insurance policy on me.
It's crazy. That's crazy. And somebody really would like to cash in on that, and they probably would really like for people like you and I to end our own lives. I think this is a strategy where,
exactly,
yeah, 30, 40 years ago, they could assassinate subjects once they had fulfilled their role. So like if we got to 27, 29, 30, whatever, if we got to a certain age and we had fulfilled our usefulness, back then, maybe 40 years ago, they could just assassinate us.
They assassinated my brother.
Yeah, my sister too.
Oh,
But
I'm so sorry.
yeah, in 2015. But it's much more difficult for them to assassinate people, especially if we speak out. So if we come on a public forum and we tell our story, it's much more embarrassing for them to try and top us. So the next best thing they have is to try and target us to a level where we just end our own lives.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, keep going with your story. I just wanted to tell you that thing about Louisiana. Is that your home? Are you from that area?
I was born there. My birth mother was there in Alexandria, and put me in a she put me in a orphanage, Catholic Charities there.
Wow, the Catholic Church has got so much to answer for.
Yeah. So, as I was healing and going through this rage of crying and screaming and healing and remembering everything, I was walking through my apartment, and then all of a sudden I found a peace I've never had in my life. And the survival mode left me. I mean, all the striving, and I've been very successful in my life, had a business, traveled, whatever. So, I never knew about it all, but I unconsciously would strive and strive and strive. So the ultramonic program that I was raised in, my dad targeted my brother and my mom targeted me. She was a 5-generation pedophile. Her mother was, her sister was. And so, long story short, there was a pastor in the community that started a small community and then up to 2 or 3,000 people. And at 7 years old, I met him. His name is Pastor Henry Melton. And so I've known him since I was 7. and he did 7 funerals for my family. And I wasn't allowed to participate. I wasn't allowed to speak, talk, do anything, do anything, do anything. And I would be so severely attacked at these funerals. I mean, there were no words of the attack that I went through. And my dad's funeral was, no one would speak to me. 50, 80 people would not speak to me. They almost spit on me. I went to get in the limousine with my family, and my hand got stuck, and the driver dragged me and dragged me. And I mean, it was just, I could never figure out what happened. And then lo and behold, the Holy Spirit came, and this pastor did 7 funerals, and I looked up all their obituaries. And then all of a sudden I hooked up with the NASA thing, and there was probably, I don't know for sure, but there was a 20, $30 million life insurance policy on my father.
Wow.
So
Wow.
my mother began to pay all these pastors and missionaries. My husband and I would go visit her. She'd do a dance with her checkbook, and all these missionaries would be in my home, and we'd pray. And I'm like, what the hell? She won't give me a dime. I don't get it. I don't get it. So it took me. So then, lo and behold, my brother dies. Same thing, same thing, same thing. Pastors there, all the people are there. I was scared to death to speak out. I mean, and so lo and behold, when I got those documents from the courthouse, there's a $5 million life insurance policy on my brother.
Oh
And
God.
she cashed it in. It's blood money. He bled to death. And I really believe with all my heart, my brother was an amazing beekeeper for 30 years, just an amazing man to the community. But they drugged him at 5 with alcohol and drugs, and the government just poured in more LSD than you could ever even imagine what was in my home. I could name off 18 drugs that were in my home, and they made my brother a drug dealer. And at 12 years old, he was a blown out drug dealer. My dad hooked him
Oh,
up. His distributor was the mailman.
wow.
And so in 2009, I got on Facebook for the first time, never done that, don't know much. And in 2 hours, I was contacted by 17 people that I grew up with, and they called me and they told me all about my family, things I never knew.
Wow.
My
Wow.
my parents were responsible for 4 young boys dying and ODing, and they never knew drugs until they met my family. And so my
And
family
this is,
went,
and you're talking all the time you're talking about your adoptive family.
yes, ma'am.
And there's a similarity to, I made a DVD around 2009 again. Um, it was the first court case in 5 generations that I know of abuse. And one of my nieces took an ex-brother-in-law to court who got convicted, and then the family got behind him and the Catholic Church got behind him, and his 6-year sentence was suspended, and the judge broke the law by not putting him on the sex offenders register. And in the 5-day trial, my whole family rallied behind the pedophile, not the victim. So I'm familiar with that. And I made, because I was suicidal. Suicidal ideation is huge. I don't know if it is for you, but with programming, they place that in there. And I was suicidal, so I just spoke to a camera for, like, I don't know, hours and hours. But the amazing thing was, people, even from my small hometown, I live in a small Irish rural town with about 24,000 people, and I got contacted by so many. It started something that was out of control for me. I had to contact the local police and say, I can't deal with the amount of disclosures that people are coming forward to me with. Like, 5 people would come forward to me about the same person, and they survivors from my own little hometown identified probably 3, 4, 5 pedophiles right here in my town, and, like, independently identified, like they there was one that had run away to England and then America, and now he's 60 and he never got closure. And he disclosed to me, and then many others disclosed to me about the same abuser in my town who was a friend of my parents, or my father's at least. So it's mind blowing, isn't it? When you go public, it's like, wow, I'm not the only one. I'm not. And that's powerful, isn't it?
It's beyond, you know, as we come out of this and heal and get strength and wisdom and know who we are, that we're covered by angels, we're covered, we're protected, we have been all our lives. I'm amazed I'm alive. And other victims, I hooked up with 8 other victims just by Facebook, like yourself. And I've learned so much so fast. I've just learned so much. But my adopted mother, her name is Peggy Wible Springer. And so she was my handler, and my abuse started at 8 months old,
Oh, I'm so
right
sorry.
from right from the orphanage. And it was her stepfather, and then he died, then 5 more men from her mother. And then at 7, my mom set me and my brother down and said we weren't related. We had to get married. We had to go to the prom. She's setting up a
Oh
whole
my God.
wedding.
Okay, hold on. So your adoptive parent instructed you and your adopted brother to marry because you weren't blood related? Because
We weren't we weren't blood related at all. And
I've interviewed somebody who was raped by her adoptive brother, and one of the things he said to her was, "It's okay, we're not."
bless you.
He said to her, "It's okay for me to rape you because we're not blood." It's horrible. That is horrendous.
So I was raped by my brother. And so once bless you.
Sorry, I got triggered.
So once she spoke that out of her mouth, she told all the neighbors, she told everyone. And my mom was incapable of raising me from 7 years old to 15. And a little girl across the street, her and her sister came over to have it on film. She took my hand, and this family took me in. And the next door neighbor was a child psychiatrist,
Sorry,
and
I'm so sorry.
he took me in. And so these people didn't call the police or CPS, but there were 14 interventions done on my family through the community. They didn't budge. They didn't budge. They didn't.
Wow.
Nothing detoured them. So my mom said that out of her mouth, and then lo and behold, I got it, that it was just mentally insane. And then my brother and his friend, this huge football player, they violated me in my own bed. And then all of a sudden, my brother was my handler. And then I wasn't always raped or molested, but the the things they did, just groping me under my bed, by the shower, in my closet, it just never ended. And when I was being violated, my mom was in the next room.
Wow.
She just so sick. And I've confronted every person that's ever violated me. I've written them a letter, exposed them. And so um, I I've been wanting justice. I've done everything on this planet to do that. I went to 89 by the phone in Florence, Alabama when this went down. These last 3 years, I contacted 89 lawyers, no help.
Wow.
I went to the police station here 3 times, nothing. Went
Yeah.
to the police in Florence, Alabama through the phone, nothing. I went to the FBI, nothing. Homeland Security, nothing. But I did contact one lawyer of a friend of a friend, and you can't disinherit me. So when my mom dies, that lawyer's going to go in and freeze everything. So my mom 30 years ago remarried a gentleman, and my mom was so horrible to me. And so that gentleman has 3 sons. and no one's ever spoken to me in 30 years.
Yeah,
30.
yeah. The isolation is horrendous, isn't it?
So one of the sons is the executor, and I had a huge Facebook storytelling with the homeless and whatever in my story. And then in the middle of the night, I couldn't sleep, and then I saw that executor on my Facebook following me. I had 5,000 people, so I blocked him. And the next day, my Facebook was completely wiped out. So I had to
Yeah,
start a new one.
yeah. That happened to me too. That happened to me too. And my father's just died. That picture. Can you see that picture in the
Yes,
background?
ma'am.
Yeah, that reminds me of my sister that I believe was murdered by my father by poisoning, and cruelty and neglect. But I had a 6 month investigation into my father and the British Royal Air Force, and then I also had a token investigation into the murder or the death of my sister. She died with a mystery toxin in her system, which registered over 500 in her liver. She had zero alcohol in her toxicology, but they wrote it up as a alcohol-related death. And my father used to say that both to her and my mother. It doesn't matter what you say, nobody's going to believe you because you're an alcoholic. He used to taunt them and feed them with alcohol, which was, in my opinion, poisoned. But I was never able to prove it, and
Right.
it's so hard not to get closure or justice. So my father died in July this year, and the one good thing he did, and I'm still trauma bonded, there are other good things I remember about him, but one of my sisters tried to get him to change his will to make her the sole executor and inheritor and this, that, and the other. And he said to me when he came back from the solicitor, the attorney, you'd call it, he said, "Oh, she tried to get me to sign over the field, but I played dumb, and the solicitor wouldn't." He said I didn't have capacity. So her attempt to get my father to change his will failed because she got a diagnosis of dementia, and he played up to it. I don't believe he had dementia, but he told me, he said I played stupid, and the attorney wouldn't let me change my will. So I'm left as an equal beneficiary of whatever has not already been stolen from him. And it's not about the money, it's really not, because when you've suffered as much as MK Ultra or Monarch, or even, when you've suffered as an abuse victim, it's not about the compensation, it's not about the money, your whole life is destroyed. Your whole life is, I don't know about you. Are you still married? Are you happily married? Do you have children? Is your life
No,
functional?
one of the things that my MK Ultra handlers did when I was 5, I remember it. They took me to the hospital at 5, and they made me completely sterile.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And they did that to my brother as well. And so no, I'm not married. I've been divorced 9 years, but my handlers bought him out. I mean, he just in 2 seconds was mesmerized by my mom's money and my stepdad. And so he just in 2 seconds was a goner, and they were all against me. And so I ran for my life, and I'm safe now. And so I was thinking, and I saw a documentary in Texas. I'm here in Austin, Texas. So the last year, I found out that every medical doctor in the state of Texas They have to go take a hour-long course in victims of sex trafficking, human trafficking. I didn't know that.
Wow.
So I went immediately. I have amazing insurance, and I went immediately to my family doctor. And I walked in. He was very clever. He seemed very cool, nice, whatever. And then I just walked in and I said, "Look, I was mind farted from Ultramonarch program. Are you familiar with it? My dad's boss is Vern Von Braun." And I said, "I need to see a neurologist immediately, ASAP. And I need an MRI immediately. There's something not right. There's a fog going on I've never experienced in my whole life. I can't explain it." And so he was so strategic and he began to ask me questions. And the next day I got an MRI. His nurse called me when I got out and said there's something wrong. And I went to him and I have a cyst on the left side of my brain. And
Wow.
I've lost 50% of my eyesight. And so I have an appointment with a neurologist at the end of the month. And so he didn't want to freak me out. And so I went home and I Googled it, and you couldn't have hit me. You could not have hit me with the result and what it's from. So I'm adopted. My birth mother called me when I was 27. We hooked up. And the first thing out of her mouth is, "I hate your guts. You destroyed my whole entire life.
Oh
I
my
hate, I
God.
hated being pregnant. I tried to kill you." And I just went,
Oh my
"Jesus,
God.
Jesus Christ, woman, I just met you and
Wow.
I did not get a good mom. And now you're a piece of mental bullshit. And
Wow.
why
Wow.
would you say that?"
Yeah.
So the cyst on my brain, it's like I have the diagnosis, I have the paperwork. So the cyst on my brain is like a water thing, and I think it's manifesting after 60 years. So she tried to kill me in the womb, and I got the head injury that way. So I dumped her years ago. There was no connection, but I really am going to reach out to her and write her a letter of, I've got this. I mean, she's loaded, whatever, and I just can't believe what people do to orphans, widows. The church doesn't help, the homeless. It's mind blowing, you know.
When my mother had 8 pregnancies in 9 years, and five live births and three alleged miscarriages. But she told me that as the wife of somebody in the projects and programs in the Royal Air Force, she told me that the military wives were very familiar with self-aborting with like things like gin and hot baths and knitting needles and all sorts of horrendous, and they could get tablets from the nappy shop, and people have gone back to the military hospitals, and the infant mortality rate, like the amount of graves for babies, is just off the charts. It makes no sense whatsoever, except for that there was just there was just programming going on. So that that's so sad. That's so sad. I'm so sorry. Another program, I'll just tell you briefly, was baby swapping. So the military hospital that my father, well, he was assigned to many of them, but they would recruit servicemen to make their wife and somebody else pregnant at the same time. Then they would arrange the births in the military hospital, and they would swap the babies at birth and then observe the mother and baby to see if the mother would realize, if the mother would reject the child, how much was nature, how much was nurture. It was just shocking, shocking, shocking. So your birth mother being so horrendous to you, that must have been just awful. And is she still alive? You're telling me she?
Yes, yeah, I called her 2 weeks ago, asked her 5 questions, and I wouldn't let her trigger me. I wouldn't let her get me mad. I wouldn't let her, and so really my mom had 4 children. Nobody knows. The Christian community, it's a Bible belt where she is. So my parents just sucked into these churches, paid the pastors, and got the community to think that they were holy wonderful, wonderful people. And wow, they adopted children. They're just, they're Mother Teresa. But, so um, my mom aborted a child. I never knew, but I went to pray for her and I got spirit filled at 19. I was stupid, young, stupid Christian, out of my mind, crazy Jesus hippie freak. You know, no balance. You're just one of those freak show
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, yeah. No, I ghost wrote for somebody who told me she was a holy roller. So she said I got saved every month. Like
Oh,
every time a new church came into town with a tent revival, I got saved again.
yeah, my God, I did so many goofball nut job things. I'm embarrassed, but I'm here now and wiser.
Yeah,
And,
you are.
you just can't, like we're programmed in Alta Monarch. There's the church programming. They program you, and it's just mind-boggling, and everything's being exposed with all the lunatic pastors and everything. But so when my father graduated from Ball State. My father was beautiful. He looked like Desi Arnaz,
Yeah, my
and my
dad was
mom
handsome too. Yeah,
looked like Jackie O, and they were
yeah, yeah,
gorgeous,
yeah, yeah,
gorgeous,
yeah.
gorgeous people. And so my dad graduated from Ball State. He grew up in Dunkirk, Alabama. His parents owned a 300-acre farm. My brother and I would go there every summer, every Christmas, and it was the best time of my life. And there would always be this one person, and I didn't know who they were, didn't care, didn't know, too young. This this teenager was way older than us, and I never knew. And then when I was 28, I got a phone call in the middle of the night from a drunk guy and said, "Are you Keith Wible's daughter?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, he has a daughter." I go, "No, he doesn't. He's got 2 orphans. He doesn't have a daughter. You're out of your freaking mind." So she got on the phone. And all these years, my dad had a daughter.
Oh God.
And my mother annihilated her for 45 years.
Oh God.
Got rid of every letter, got rid of every phone call. And then my dad was an alcoholic, and my family went through 16 rehabs, drugs, alcohol. And my dad had to come to Jesus and made an amend to her. We were talking, and she's cut me off, but she, she has no clue about this, and I want to tell her. I called the police department to try to find her, but my mom, my adopted mom, totally will not give her inheritance from her dad, and it's just horrific.
So I'm going to wind up because I want to keep this to an hour, but I want to do this for as long as it takes for us to really get to the bottom of this. But tell me your circumstances now. How is your life now? Are you married, divorced? Are you happy? Are you safe? Do you have a church or not? Just give me an update about how things are now. And then I can't wait to go down the rabbit hole with you again next week.
So um currently now, I'm just honestly, I'm just kind of frozen of finding out so much information. And I'll be honest with you, every day it's like I find out more and more. And so um I I live in a beautiful, beautiful place. Everything's included. I kept a lot of my furniture. I've decorated, and I have a safe place here. The community loves me, 4 years. And I went to a mental health clinic for 5 years. And then once I mentioned sex trafficking, human trafficking, they dumped me, but they've been paying my rent. And then I hit 211, and I found state assistance. They pay my electricity.
What's 211?
It is in the United States, in every state, there's an emergency number of any particular help that you need. And you, on your phone, hit 211, and it goes down a vocabulary. The woman operator goes down anything, everything you could ever need in your life: assistance, housing, food, legal. It is it is the number. If I ever need help, I call it. I've done it 3 times, and there's 19 food banks here. It's just like emergency help with anybody that needs anything.
Well, that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and so I'm not happy. I have this burning. I mean, I'm at peace, but I mean anybody that has been affiliated with anybody like this, and then finding out at like 52 years old, I'm just kind of numb, and I
Mind
had a
blowing.
job.
It's mind blowing, isn't it?
It's mind
I
blowing,
know.
and I don't feel like I haven't worked in a month, and the last job I had, I got annihilated at a salon. There was a full blown witch there, and there was a warlock there. All their tattoos were demonic, all their jewelry, their station, and they annihilated me. And they got me fired, and so I can't go through that again. But I'm taking
Is
one day
it?
at a time.
Yeah, you do. It sounds like you're pretty well supported. That's great. How many times have you been married, if you don't mind me asking?
I've been married 2 times.
And are you twice divorced?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And so the church, I was in ministry, and the praise and worship leader hooked me up with his brother in San Antonio. I was in Destin Beach, Florida. And I didn't want to, but I didn't have any money. My parents, I had this gigantic wedding. I get in his apartment. I can't sleep. I can't function. So, long story short, he was a registered pedophile.
Oh God. In the
And
church.
I
In the
got out
church. That is
immediately.
so disgusting.
I got out immediately, called the church. They wanted nothing ever to do with
Nothing to
me
do with it.
again.
Yeah, yeah. You're the troublemaker. This is what I find. We're the troublemakers. But look, I want to just wind it up. I really want to ask you sincerely, will you do this with me for 2, 3, 4 interviews until we can really like peacefully dig down in this? Are you happy to do this once a week?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's good to connect with you. It really is. It's good to connect with you. Like I'm in the Republic of Ireland. You're in where you don't have to tell me.
Austin,
Austin,
Texas.
Texas. Yeah, I flew into Houston, Texas, and then I got driven to Louisiana, Lake Charles, and then I got invited back. It was amazing that I got a publicist offered to represent me if I would just write a book, right? And then I got invited back for 8 weeks with free accommodation, a beautiful place to stay, a beautiful vehicle to drive. But my health crashed. I don't know if you have health challenges, but
Yes, ma'am. I have a
yeah,
cyst on my brain, my eye, and
yeah. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say to you was that I've had, even though my health is not great, but I have had incredible miracles. I had like,
me too.
yeah, I've had incredible healings where even the surgeons in the hospital were shaking because they didn't know what happened. They're like, 2 days before my surgery, they had a tumor, another tumor, a cyst, and every indication of terminal cancer. And then they go in and it's gone, and they're like, they couldn't figure it out. So I just want to end this with prayer and say that even though I find it so hard, but I do know that our God can heal. He can heal, He can reveal the truth, and He can bring to justice the people that do this. And that's something I want is people to be held accountable.
So
So
so before we end, I just want to
yeah,
say
yeah.
this.
So sorry. Go ahead. Finish up. You
It's
finish
okay.
up.
No, so I've been working on something, praying about something, and then I watch a particular podcast, and there's victims, and there was just one victim. She caught my eye. She was so genuine, wonderful, wonderful. So I called her. She lives an hour from my mom,
Okay.
and she's John Walsh's daughter.
Megan Walsh. Megan Walsh.
No, there's another daughter.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay.
So long story short, she proposed something to me. I don't want to get into it now, but she proposed something to me, and I have a diligent plan, and I'm waiting for the timing. I'm waiting for some money, and if God allows me, I am gonna go by force and turn a town upside down. And I just have a plan, but I have to be psychologically ready for it. And um I have a plan to do something. I believe it's God ordained. And I have to mature more, no fear, no, there's a strategy to these MK Monarch people, and I have all documents, and I just have a plan for me to walk through this. And I'm writing a book, and I believe justice is going to be done.
Yeah, there's a scripture that jumped to my mind when you said that. The kingdom of God suffers violence, but the violent take it by force. So we do need to not just endure and not just raise awareness. We need to have a plan and a strategy. So I congratulate you on that. And if you want people to contact you, I don't know, do you want people to contact you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's hear the best way for people to get in touch with you.
My email address is Karen Wible, Wible 1 at gmail.com. I'm on Facebook. And also my phone number is
Oh, no,
512.
I
Oh,
won't let you give your phone number out, just for
okay.
safety, just for safety. Because
Thank you.
I'm just protecting you as a sister.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you get fans and you get crazy people. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that your email is out there and your Facebook is out there. And I'll put your Facebook link in the description. And I just implore you, I'll just warn you, because I haven't just whistleblown about MK Ultra and Monarch programming and the Royal Air Force and 5 generations in my family, but I've also whistleblown about very high level satanic ritual abuse cults in the UK. So there's a lot of misinformation out there about me and a lot of trolling. So when I put this first interview out, you're likely going to get contacted by trolls who say,
It's okay. It's
yeah,
happened. I'm
yeah,
good.
yeah, we're all good. So let's do this again next week. This is part 1, and I'm very, very pleased to meet you. And I'm sorry for what you've been through. In part 2, I really want to talk about, because I look at that picture, my sister's death and your brother's death. I don't want
Yes.
to be morbid, but
Yes.
I'd like to address that subject in
Yes.
the next interview.
You're a doll. I appreciate you so much.
All right, sweetheart. Lovely to talk to you. God bless.
Bless you.